So my green beans, my tomatoes, my potatoes, my garlic and onions, my carrots, my red beets, they're all up. And all of these herbs need to be harvested. So I'll harvest them about 3 times a year. One of the things you can do with using the resources that you have, pretty much no matter where you live. So we had this big branch fall yesterday. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it up and we're going to use it for wood to cook our food this summer. This is just one of many things that you can do to use up the resources that you have. Now, even if you don't have a man that lives at home, as a woman you can cut this up. It just would take you maybe a couple days or even a week to do it. But you can cut it up if you take your time. So this is one resource. I'm going to share with you a whole lot of others. When you talk about self-survival, here's another thing that you can do. Do you have a maple tree? We happen to have a large maple tree on our property. Well, this tree could be tapped for maple syrup. Although it wouldn't give you a lot, you probably get about a gallon of this, and a gallon of maple syrup is very expensive. Now, for every gallon of maple syrup, there's many gallons of the liquid that you have to boil off. But here's just another way. In a survival situation, you can use your resources. 2 resources. Water barrels. Water barrels are amazing because you're just gleaning the resource of the sky. And you're able to use the water barrels for all sorts of projects. Whether it's washing dishes, whether it's washing clothing, whether it's to flush toilets if you have your own septic system and there would be no electricity. Water barrels are very important, and I have 2 of them. Beside the water barrel is some of the branches that came off that large branch. So what I did is I made sure they were cut in uniform length. These are going to be another trellis, or teepee as I call them, to grow any kind of viney plants. So I'm going to have this for having green beans. And so this is another resource that you can use. There are a lot of other resources, and let me show you. This was grown wild. And while most people want to chop it off, I want it to flourish. And this is wild roses. Wild roses are very edible. And you can use the wild roses for all kinds of jellies and jams. You can also use them in tinctures if you add it with alcohol. You can do so many things with these wild roses. They also smell amazing. They also are a beautiful hedge. You don't have to go out and buy all kinds of expensive plants. You let your own native plants flourish. Another rose, and this is all wild, and I just shaped it the way I wanted it. And this is really great as a hedge, as a privacy screen. I would love to have these the whole length of my property. It doesn't cost you much of anything. In fact, you can probably do it for free to have your own little fire pit, to have your own place where you can cook some of your food, that it doesn't require any electricity. Anybody can do this almost anywhere. And this is another great thing that you can use on your property, that is using your natural resources and using the resources that you have. In life, you don't always have to buy things. You can produce your own things and make things out of nothing. So these berries are called tea berries, and they actually grow wild here in Pennsylvania. But I have cultivated these and have them growing all along my property line. This is another free resource that I can glean from. These are berries that are very, very good. So when I find them, if they're growing someplace where I don't want them, I will dig them up and transplant them. So they're going to be growing the whole length of this area. Another thing I cultivated was some wild roses. These are what I would call fence rows of roses. These wild roses in the fall will give me little rose hips. And rose hips are high in vitamin C, which you can make a tea, tinctures, all kinds of things with it. That's just another free resource that you can find, even if you live in a residential area like I do. The whole part of my videos are to share with you that you don't have to have a big property, you don't have to have thousands of dollars put into things. You can glean with what you have in your area. And you would be surprised all of the things that you can glean from. Above me is a black walnut tree. Also, the walnuts from this black walnut tree, when they drop in the fall, I harvest them and I dry them. And we have walnuts. Some years we have a good walnut crop, other years not so good. This is something else that was free here on my little homestead. About this place, it wasn't a homestead. I turned it into one. It was just a regular place that was left go and was very dilapidated. It wasn't a homestead because there was no garden on it. There were no animals. There was nothing growing, living here. Everything was dead. Homestead can mean whatever you want it to mean. A homestead isn't just something in black and white. A homestead can be if you have a garden, if you have a deck with things that are planted in containers, things that are living, things that are growing. That's what makes a homestead. So if you have just some vegetables in a pot, or if you live in an apartment in a high-rise building, but you have things growing, you're taking onions and you're cutting the tops off and using them, and in the bottoms you are regrowing things. That can be a homestead. Basically livable. It's turning something into a place where you can thrive. This is thriving. To some people this may look like poverty, but to me it's thriving. This is a living and breathing ground that I walk on. It's living and breathing the home. When we're not home, if somebody would come here, they would see the love that was poured into this place. That is what a homestead is. And that is what is using free resources that you have, no matter what they are. Today working, I'm cleaning out the chicken house and I'm putting manure on the garden, which I will share in an upcoming video. I'm doing all of these things. It keeps me occupied, it keeps me busy, it keeps me moving, and it keeps me young feeling. This is what homesteading means to me. Homesteading means to me a breath of life in a property that was slowly dying. Homesteading means to me breathing life into a property that was slowly dying. The man passed away here on this property, and he left it go for many years because he was very ill. I'm breathing new life into it. In fact, I'm making it better than it ever was before. And that's what homesteading means to me. Thumbs up always helps me a lot.